and welcome to another episode of that 401k podcast. This time we're actually going to have a recording where we can hear everything, but that was the whole story about that last week. Ary Rosenbaum here with Dan Venturi. We are in a freezing hotel room here in Kansas City, right by Kauffman Stadium. Or is it Kauffman Stadium? Or is it?
Let's go Kauffman.
Okay. Well, whatever. But we're here in Kansas City, and of course, we've had fun. We're recording this, of course, the night before that 401k conference, which will be at Kauffman Stadium with our guest, Danny Jackson. So we've had a couple of fun-filled days. Well, it was more really one fun-filled day here in Kansas City. How's been the experience, Dan?
It's been great. The ball game was awesome. We had a special treat this morning. We spent some time over at the Negro League Museum. Just a ton of amazing history, learning about a bunch of, amazing ball players and sort of wondering what it would have been like had a Jackie Robinson come 20 or 30 years before Jackie Robinson. Then we went over and there isn't a professional team store that Ary does not like. So we got to double down today. We hit the Chief Stadium over at Arrowhead, and then right before the Royals took on the Devil Rays today, we hit that team store. So that was a blast. And coming from New York, and folks on the East Coast have an understanding of exactly how expensive it is to go to a sporting event. Out here, we were maybe 10 seats from home plate, right?
Yeah, some of that.
Right along, just on the third base side of home plate, and seats for $30. Had an amazing concept. You overpay for basically your meal. It was like $20 for a hot dog, fries, and a Coke, but unlimited refills. So that was phenomenal. And then we hit quite possibly one of the best barbecue spots on the planet, Joe's Barbecue, which is tucked into a gas station just on the other side of the Missouri-Kansas line. So that was wonderful. It's been an action-filled afternoon. Looking forward to tomorrow, and sharing some fun stories with you guys tonight.
Yeah, it was. It's my first time to Kansas City. You're Jewish. Being a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, never thought I'd be in Kansas City. I don't know why I always say that, but there are Jews in Kansas City. We proved that today we went after the Negro League Museum, and I went to the Negro League Museum. To me, it's a big fan of baseball history, big fan of baseball, and to me, it's I always joke that the two worst things, the two biggest scandals and shames of baseball, of course, number one is the color line. That they actually had Negro Leagues. They had the segregation till 47. And, of course, the second biggest, to me, shame to baseball is that the Florida Marlins won 2 World Series. So,
which, coincidentally enough, is the exact number of World Series the New York Mets have won.
Well, that's I think, part of it. I think if the Mets have won 5 or 6 World Series, I wouldn't be, harboring that thing. My problem with it. So after the Negro League Museum, we went to Michigan Bagels. Just because I like the name. For those who are of the non-Jewish persuasion,
Gentiles.
That's the majority. I don't like that word. Non-Jews. To me, I don't like the Gentile. I just never liked that term. But anyway, Michigan, of course, means crazy in Yiddish. Making me Michigana is a phrase that I would say to my daughter all the time, and of course she gives it back to me. So we went there, and quite honestly, the bagels weren't that bad. The bagels weren't that bad because they bake it, and the point of why certain bagels are good and why certain bagels are not, it's got nothing to do with the water. There's a chain of bagel restaurants in Massachusetts and some other states they call Brooklyn Water Bagels, trying to suggest that it has something to do with Brooklyn water. So they filter the water like Brooklyn, which I don't know, maybe they dirty it, maybe it's from the Gowanus, they make it that way or whatever. But, it's got nothing to do with it. Listen, I live on Long Island now. bagels are just as good there as they're in Brooklyn. And Queens had some pretty good bagels. There were some pretty good places in Forest Hills on Austin Street.
Yeah.
I forget what was that name. There was a place over there that was actually really good that I'd buy bagels from. So it's got nothing to do with Brooklyn. It's got to do with the fact that they boil and bake. When you steam bagels instead of boiling them, that's why they come out looking and tasting like rolls instead of bagels. So they knew how to make the bagels. What was interesting is they didn't make the. It was more of a traditional New York type bagel bakery because they didn't have all the weird different flavors. When your weirdest flavor is what you call it, cinnamon raisin. I mean that's usually the crazy one. You didn't have sun-dried tomato or blueberry or
Rainbow.
Rainbow, different colors. And, I was talking to somebody today about Thomas English muffins. They make their own bagels, and they actually had a birthday cake mini bagel, which culturally, as a Jew from Brooklyn, I find that insulting. And of course, Dan is right. We did go to the pro team stores. I have kids, and they want things, and my son's a big sports fan, and so when Arrowhead is next to Kauffman Stadium, right there, you take advantage of that. He wants to, I'm sure he'll like the Pat Mahomes shirt, and he wanted a George Brett shirt from Kauffman, so that was fun. And the beer, they had Boulevard beer, so I got to do what the locals do and try out that beer. That was actually good. The game was great. Like Dan said, $35 is sitting right behind home plate, and New York, you're sitting in the outfield, or at Yankee Stadium, you're probably sitting in the upper deck for $35.
If you even get into the stadium.
Well, these days I think you can. When they're selling tickets on Groupon and all that stuff, I think you can go. But all in all, it was a fun event. And then, of course, tomorrow we got that 401k conference in Kansas City, and of course, by the time you're listening to it, you'll be listening to it the day of. If you're not there, you're not there. But we got a good crowd. Danny Jackson's our guest. People forget that he was on the 85 Royals. I didn't remember that he was. For some reason, I always think of him on the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was only there in 92. He was there on the Reds in 90. I don't know why I don't remember that. But he was. And, it's going to be a great event, and we're going to have more barbecue. Tonight we went to Joe's Barbecue, as Dan said, and quite honestly, it's considered the greatest barbecue place in the United States. The New York Post said so, and I believe everything that's in the New York Post.
Why wouldn't you?
That's a joke from the movie Top Secret. I forgot the character's name, and he's a complete moron. He believes everything he reads in the New York Post. And of course, Top Secret is a very underrated Zucker Brothers movie. Of course, with Jim Abrams directing it as well.
Charlie Sheen?
No, that's Hot Shots, and that was only Jim Abrams. That was not a Zucker Brothers. They kind of split off, and he did Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2. And we went to Joe's Barbecue, and quite honestly, it's probably the best barbecue I ever had. Not that I've ever had that many barbecues, but the food was amazing, and now we're here back taping. Well, joking that I'm taping an episode. We're recording an episode. I know there's no longer tape involved.
You said we were going to film.
Tape, film, it's the same concept. Words. But anyway, let's start plugging some more events. After Kansas City, we'll be in Denver on June 14th. The guest is, what's his name? Ryan Spielberg. Spielberg. He's not related to Steven Spielberg. He played for the Rockies, and now he's a broadcaster for the Rockies. So apparently, I can't get the greatest guest for Denver. I'm sorry. Our budget only goes so far. The same budget that got us Andre Dawson, got us Ryan. You listen, a guest is a guest is a guest. We'll be in Cleveland in September. That's going to be a lot of fun. That is going to be September 20th, a Friday night. We're going to get a game against the Phillies. Try to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Got to see all the greats over there. For me, it's Aerosmith, Queen, Kiss.
Speaking of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this one blew me away today, guys. So we were at the Negro League Museum,
Oh, that's right.
and not apparently, I mean, we confirmed it. Geddy Lee, the lead singer of Rush, basically donated his collection of signed baseballs, and there must have been what 200-300 of them.
It was one of the most amazing collections of signed balls that I ever seen because, first of all, it's it obviously was fairly recent. I mean, there were some older balls in there, and the balls were pristine. Like lily white. They weren't yellowed, and it was just an amazing collection. And all of a sudden, Dane notices Geddy Lee, and he's like, "Oh, it can't be that Geddy Lee." I'm like, yeah, "I know he's a big baseball fan, and how many Geddy Lees are there? It's not a really popular name." And so that I looked it up on Google, whatever, and it turns out, yeah, Geddy Lee had this big collection that he donated at this Negro League baseball museum.
So I mean, aside from being a kick-ass musician, he is a illuminated fan of baseball, right?
And he is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, aren't they?
Oh yeah, Rush is definitely in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You'll be surprised who's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Recent, but I think within 5 years or so.
Yeah, I think it took them a long time to get in. There's certain bands out there that Kiss was, I think, is a big example of one that kind of got passed aside for many years, and Journey finally made it, and Styx, I think they're gonna have a tough time getting in. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to me is only, it's a creature of, what Jan Wenner wants to see get in the hall, and, certain acts are still not in there, but whatever. But Geddy Lee's in there, and now he's in the Negro League Museum, Baseball Museum, because he gave such a nice donation. I don't know if it's loaned or it's for forever, but it was a really interesting thing. So, yeah, September 20th, we'll be there in Cleveland, Ohio. We'll be at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then we got, I think it's Friday, October 13th, is it? Or 11th? I think it's the 11th, maybe. Foxborough, Massachusetts, our first football-themed that 401k conference. And we're going to try, some of us will probably try to go to the Patriots-Giants game the night before. That's how the schedule worked. Some will say that was a good thing. Some will say that that's a bad thing. And I think the only bad thing is when I'd wanted to stay at the hotel right by Foxborough, and for Thursday night it's only $800. So
only
we'll have to stay somewhere else.
Only.
And and after that we're probably going to book a event for November at MetLife Stadium, and then in December we'll be at AT&T Stadium. But most importantly, let's talk about that 401k National Conference. It's a national event that we're going to have at Disney World next March 10th and 11th, 2020. This was my idea with Dan, and this will be the event that will either make us or break us. It's at the Disney Swan. It's a great hotel right by Epcot. Attendance is, it's going to be on the cheaper side compared to some of the other national events. You'll have the ability to buy discount Disney tickets. There will be a good room rate at the Disney Swan. It's going to be a 2-day event. We're doing it on a Monday, Tuesday. So Saturday, Sunday, tour the parks. Disney's the Hollywood Studios are going to have the new Star Wars Galaxy's Galaxy's Edge or Galaxy's End or whatever. They're going to have the new Star Wars land open by then. It's going to be a fun event. A little bit more laid back than some of the other national events. We're only going to have one room of seminars, so if you're participating as a planned sponsor, you don't have to worry that somehow you have no attendees or people not showing up. And of course, we'll have athlete appearances like we always do. So it's going to be a fun event. Ticket information will be available soon. Sponsorship brochures are available on JD Supra, and I believe shortly on that 401ksite.com you'll see the link for the Disney event. It's going to be fun. I guarantee it. We'll do some interesting things that are different from some of the national events. And of course, my joke is you will not see the same 5 speakers that are at every event. And of course, that's a statement that will get me in a lot of trouble. But that's,
kind of what we do here.
This is what we do. Listen, we're, kind of the, in the catalog, I actually said I'm the I actually said I have a sponsorship brochure. Again, you could see that, and I said I am, I think it's a throwaway line. It reminds me of David Letterman, but I said I'm the world's most dangerous ERISA attorney.
Sure.
Just because I'm kind of frank and I'm not playing nice with some people, I guess, but I kind of tell it as I see it, and so you will not see the same 5 people who speak at every single event. Who those 5 people are, I actually don't really know, but I always seems to be
those 5 people.
Those 5 people.
They know.
They know who they are. I don't know who they are, but they know who they are, and they will not be speaking at the event. Except I think one of the people that are on the list is actually speaking. No, it's not even one person we're talking about. But anyway, go to the site, see the prospectus information. You want to be a sponsor for the event. You're not gonna have to rob a bank to pay for it. Some of these other events I've seen, not just 401k events, but anytime somebody wants you to speak at an event or sponsor a table, you're just paying a lot of money and you're not really seeing a benefit for it. So the sponsorships are going to be a lot less than you see somewhere else. To me, we want to have the event pay for itself, but we also, it's always important in this business to build relationships, and it's as my friend Rich Lurie would always say, it's a relationship-driven business. And it's extremely important out there to, there'll be ample time for networking. And, Dan and I see that from these conferences that we do, that 401k conference, and what number are we on? I don't even know.
6, 7?
No, I don't know. And it's like, do you include Tampa twice because we had 2 events in Tampa, or we don't? I don't even know.
But twice.
We've had more than 6. And what's great about these events, to me, it's, I go on and speak for 5 minutes, and I, do my airplane presentation, which we'll have to probably retire soon. But what's great about the events is networking with people, and we've met a lot of great people over time. I just met an advisor in LA, and he wants me to write some of his agreements, and we've met auditing firm that has been a couple of auditing firms, and it's great to know a good auditor here and there, and it's really helped us along, and it'll continue again in Kansas City. We have some great presenters. Dan's got his thing with the 316 and TPA services. Kravitz has always been there since day one, which we always thank them for. Fiduciary Wise, they were in Atlanta, so they're going to be here again in Kansas City. They did a great presentation. We're going to have Lincoln doing it, presentation, and I'm really looking forward to Thrive, our friends at Thrive. And if you haven't heard of Thrive, well, Google it. David Krasnow has this great student loan matching program. So I think it's another great idea. Of course, that's becoming a really popular thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 8 is also the number, I think, in terms of the
one of these days we can number it like WrestleMania, I guess. I don't know.
Or UFC, right? They're up to like 200 and something. But going back, and I think Ary sort of purposely glossed over a really important part of the national conference. Bring your families, guys. It's Disney. You're getting tickets at 30% off at the park. It's a great deal. I mean, aside from all the value you're going to get from the conference, the connections, the community, the team that Ary and I always talk about, that's important to build, to bring to a table when you're in front of a plan sponsor. Aside from all that stuff, it's just going to be a lot of fun hanging out with your family at Disney and not having to spend a fortune.
Yeah, I mean, I did explain that, you have the weekend over there, but I did gloss over the fact that the idea why Disney was, again, when I do events, why are we at Kauffman Stadium? Well, it's better than, the Marriott, the local Marriott or whatever it is. We want to do something unique and memorable. And, Las Vegas is one of my favorite cities. Dallas is a great city. Nashville is a great city. San Diego is a great city. But I want Disney because it's a family-friendly place. Listen, I travel. I don't travel as much as some other providers do. I see, the people, my friend Richard Liberty, may rest in peace. He was a top TPA salesperson. He was 4 or 5 days, uh, traveling, and he was, living out of a suitcase. So the idea is, we are going to have an event. It's a family-friendly event. Bring your kids, bring your spouse, bring your significant other, or whoever, bring the mother-in-law or whoever you want to bring, but bring them to the event because it's going to make it easier. It's going to be a fun spot, and then you don't have to worry about other plans that you have to make. And it's in March. There's never really a downtime at Disney, but more so in late December or spring break or sometime in the summer. So it's a great opportunity. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, we're going to have an athlete appearance every day. Have some interesting topics. We're going to have a lot of different networking events. We'll have the exhibit room. Probably develop and sell T-shirts. My TPA T-shirt. We're going to have to redo that and sell it. I think that is going to be a big moneymaker.
And we're also developing, and we'll probably have a little bit more information on this in the coming months. But we're going to develop a sort of an advisor boot camp. Bunch of different things that we're going to cram into a few hours, soup to nuts, everything from understanding ERISA to prospecting to leveraging social media, negotiating with providers and record keepers, the best way to evaluate them, benchmark them, all that super important stuff that I'm not sure the industry is getting in a single source. So that's something that we're developing. And we're going to make a huge announcement tomorrow. So tune in to next week's podcast to hear more about that.
Well, probably the next week's podcast, because we're probably going to film 2 episodes today. So
we're doubling down today.
We're going to have to, because we have to make it up for the...
We owe it to the people.
Well, I always like to have one in the can, as they say, before we film another one.
As they say.
And I say film as opposed to recording.
We're industry types now.
I'm stuck in the 80s where we film.
Where we film.
We tape, we record.
Yes.
No, we record.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, we're going to have a lot of fun things that we're working on, and that's, probably the reason why this episode's a throwaway episode. But it's not really a throwaway episode. We want to tell you about some, really some of the things that we're working on. And again, these events are fun. I know it's hard to get advisors to attend events, but, these are memorable events, and, they're exciting and they're interesting. And, listen, going to a game, seeing a former athlete, it's something memorable, and, that's what we are, and that's why the national conference is going to be the same thing.
I mean, Ary goes to card shows a lot with his son, and, we meet once a week at our usual spot, the Cheesecake Factory, and he tells me all the time about how much it costs to get an autograph from a lot of these athletes. They're the same guys that are coming to these conferences, right? So not only are you getting all the content, not only are you getting the stadium tour, not only are you getting lunch, but you're also getting to spend time with a hometown athlete of the city we're in. We've had, 2 Hall of Famers already?
Yeah.
Boggsy and Dawson, right? We've had Dwight Gooden, who, isn't a Hall of Famer, but he was a damn good pitcher in his day. It just alone, and I've said it probably, a bunch of times on the podcast, if it's not the best, it's definitely one of the best values in this industry. And there are a lot worse ways to spend a Friday morning than hanging out at a ballpark, learning stuff, hanging out with your colleagues, meeting folks, learning about your local team, meeting, one of your childhood heroes. So it's a good way to spend a Friday morning. So we invite you to come out to Denver, Cleveland, Dallas, and definitely take the time to come out to the national conference in March. It's going to be a blast. We're going to do a lot of things different. You're going to have Disney. mark it on your calendars, guys. We look forward to seeing you out there.
Okay, so that's going to wrap up this week's episode, and because we're going to tape another episode very soon. So anyway, until next time, it's Ary and Dan signing off. Take care.
Have a good weekend.